Quick review. Long ago for many of you, there was the honeymoon phase. This is the beginning of the AmeriCorps members' term when they're optimistic, they think you're amazing, you're excited about them starting, your site supervisors are really happy to have them on board. It's just a wonderful, optimistic, rosy, idyllic picture. And thank goodness for that. You need that honeymoon phase. You need that big excitement at the beginning of the term when people are so enthusiastic about what they're going to do, and you really want to capitalize on that. For most people, I will say that, what I'm about to describe, of course, is not every single AmeriCorps member's journey through AmeriCorps, and it's going to differ based on what your program model is and how long your terms are. So some people have very compressed terms. You might not make it through all these stages, or you might have a different version of these stages. So just keep that in mind. But for most people, there's some form of a honeymoon phase. And in a longer term program, that usually can last like 4 to 6 weeks even. And management tip, by the way, I always used to try to have a site visit with my members during the honeymoon phase. And some of you might be like, that's cheating. Why visit them when everything's still so new and so rosy? But in my case, it was a program site model in which I had many different sites all over the place. So the members were not serving at my location. They were all in these partner sites. And so I felt like it was important that while they were still in the honeymoon phase, I reminded them that I existed. I checked in, we kept that relationship fresh, because then they would remember me when the next phase came along, which would be the facing reality phase. Facing reality can take many different forms. Sometimes it's the reality of what the position itself is going to entail. So maybe the member feels like they really want to work in education. They might not have had education experience before. Maybe they've never been in a school setting or worked with students before. And suddenly now that they're in it, they realize, oh my gosh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, or I'm not sure I really like my site. So there could be reality based on what they're actually doing as an AmeriCorps member, or that facing reality could have more to do with the fact that they've just become an AmeriCorps member and therefore are trying to live on the living allowance. They may also have relocated or made other big life changes in order to be able to accept that position as an AmeriCorps member. So whatever it is, usually there's something in the member's situation that hits them. And it can feel like it really is like hitting a wall because the expectations were so high and the positive feelings were so high that it can feel pretty abrupt when they realize whatever that harsh reality is that they have to confront. However, it's important because one of the most critical phases, in my opinion, of being an AmeriCorps member is what comes next, the overcoming phase. The alums out there can relate to this. Part of taking the AmeriCorps pledge, if you really take it to heart and you read it, it talks right in the middle of the pledge about what to expect. It says, faced with adversity, I will persevere. Faced with conflict, I will seek common ground. Faced with apathy, I will seek action. It doesn't say, we're going to take care of you, everything's going to be super easy, we're going to bring snacks, you're never going to have to do anything challenging, don't worry, it's all going to be super smooth. No, not at all. It's actually baked right into what the AmeriCorps experience is, that we say right there that it's going to be challenging and that they're going to have to tackle really difficult issues when trying to help solve these big problems that AmeriCorps addresses. So this overcoming phase, oh, did I have a question? Oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna keep going. So this is critical. Well, I don't think you're really an AmeriCorps member until you experience that part of your AmeriCorps service and you get through it. And as an AmeriCorps program director, you're prepared for this. You know the members are going to experience that in some way, shape, or form. And that's part of what you've done in terms of giving them support, training, having well-trained supervisors so that they are ready for that. Therefore, you can get to the accomplishment phase, which usually looks something like the member saying, wow, that was hard, but I can see the end. I can see that I'm making a difference. I feel like I'm learning so much. I can see how much I've grown or how much more I understand about it now. Any of those kind of things that they might be saying are a good sign that they are now moving into the accomplishment phase. And that's a great time to really celebrate that and highlight it and give them that positive reinforcement that you also see all the progress that they've made. Because you are still not out of the woods yet, there is one more phase, and it's often what takes new program managers by surprise. That's what I call exit fever. I decided on the name exit fever because of an experience I had as a young person. When I was growing up in Virginia, I was in Girl Scouts, and we used to go caving in West Virginia. We'd go into these deep, dark mud caves where we would slide on our bellies, and we'd have to like crawl and push ourselves through corners, and it was completely black, and we had bats hanging from the ceiling. It was absolutely amazing. And we were led by these caving guides, Caving Bob and Caving Dick. And Caving Bob was the one who told us about this idea of exit fever. He warned us that even though we were having a ton of fun and we didn't feel like we were afraid or claustrophobic, we were in there making sculptures out of mud and seeing just how covered in mud we could get. He said that we would still have to be extra careful, because in caving there's a phenomenon where when you get right to the end and you see that first bit of natural light that enters from the mouth of the cave right as you're getting ready to leave, that is almost a physiological response that you have to it. Suddenly you forget everything you knew about how to be careful in the cave. You start to quicken your pace and rush towards the exit. And he said that something like 90% of all accidents happen within that final part right by the exit of the cave. And that's why they call it exit fever. And I think it's such a great symbolism for what happens in AmeriCorps sometimes, because I was always so surprised when I'd have an AmeriCorps member who had made it through these other phases. We were celebrating their accomplishments. They had learned so much. They were enthusiastic. They were positive. They had had some mistakes early on, but now they were doing great. And then just blindsided by members who would either make a mistake that seemed completely out of character because they hadn't done anything like that or hadn't done anything like that since the very beginning, or would just suddenly quit out of nowhere. It was like a matter of weeks or even hours left that they had in their term, and just out of nowhere, they would suddenly say, oh, no, I've accepted another position and I'm gone. It's been great. Or they just wouldn't say anything at all and would leave. So the first year or so that I was AmeriCorps program manager, I experienced this hardcore and didn't see it coming at all. So then I started to realize that this was actually quite normal, and it's really just a normal life cycle of the members getting ready for the next thing and getting excited about the next thing. And so they might have that quickening of their pace, and they might surprise themselves in the way that they either make a mistake or just suddenly decide to go in a completely different direction. Okay, I'm going to pause. Kelsey, did we have any questions or comments that came in the chat before I move to the next thing?
We have not.
Okay.